Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting Tuesday, February 26th. Mark Sullivan, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let it not be said that the town of Foxborough doesn't pay its debts or its bills. As promised, to New Jersey.
The New Jersey Giants.
To East Rutherford. Probably my most painful act yet as selectman.
Yeah, it's hurting me.
Yeah.
But I think Mr. Sullivan had a good time. Mark, can you fill us in on your trip to New Jersey?
It was a good time, thanks, James. I went down with former Selectman Michael Stanton. We went up to the Patriots Pro Shop. They gave us an apparel to wear, and we wore it there. We didn't have it on long, but went there. It took us 205 miles each way. We met the mayor and the council, and we compared towns quite a bit, and it was very interesting how close the towns compared. They're building a new stadium next to their old stadium the year after they won the Super Bowl. It's very similar to us. They also have a horse track there, and they're also building a new entertainment complex. They actually have an inside ski slope.
Really?
And it's this big monstrosity coming out of the sky. It's just a big steel building and a mall, all at the same time. And it's very interesting. The population is 8,400. Their income from the stadium each year, because they have two teams and some other added things, is $5 million a year.
$5 million, 8,400 people. They're good negotiators in New Jersey, I'll tell you that.
And they're all Republicans.
Must be northern New Jersey.
I don't mind losing to them in that case.
They're all Republicans.
As long as we keep it within the party.
It was fun. The paper is here. This is the record that shows myself here.
Well, let's make sure we end. The big news is Fidel Castro's got the bigger picture. Of course, you have Obama and Clinton and our own Mark Sullivan on the front page of the record.
All right, he's in healthy
How about
company.
that? And did you meet with the town, is it a city council, town council, Mark?
Town council with the mayor. The town council gets, like our stipend is $90 a month. That's all we make, ladies and gentlemen. And
Well, that's for
they get
expenses actually
$4,000
we
a
don't make.
year.
So.
The town council gets $4,000 each a year, and they get the full benefits package. So the whole thing works out to almost $30,000 a year to be an elected official, and the mayor gets $7,000 with the same package. And after 10 years, they're vested. So it's quite a big difference where they run it down there compared to up here. But they were very friendly. I had a great time down there. And my last quote to them is, "We'll see you up here next year." But all these.
Did you bring the chowder?
Oh yeah, we brought the chowder and a Patriots cooler, just like it shows right here. They were a little offended by that. We have the Patriots cooler right there. The chowder came in. That's the mayor right there. But the one thing, knowing that I can't take anything from the Patriots, I brought it down there, and they agreed that it should be donated to the Good Doodle auction with these hats. So these hats, unfortunately, I know there are some Giants fans up there. There's an autographed Giants banner, and we got the Patriots hat, brand new, used for 30 seconds, I promise. And
Well, who wore it? Was it you or Mike?
it was me.
All right.
And then the Belichick sweatshirt,
Gray hoodie.
also, and then the whole town council and the mayor autographed my Patriots jersey, and Mike Matthews, the player. So all these items will be at the Doodle home auction on
Saturday.
On Saturday. Yep, Saturday.
approximately 2:30.
1 o'clock. It'll be there all day long, so keep those bids coming.
And,
Watch cable.
Unfortunately,
Cable 8. Watch cable 8.
unfortunately, we have to wear these hats for the whole meeting, James. So let's make this a fast one.
Okay.
I'm getting
If
it,
we have any
Sharon.
serious subjects come up, we'll just put them on this one,
If
right?
it helps people remember to watch cable 8 for the Doodle home auction this Saturday, then I'll wear it the entire time. Maybe we can use that as a publicity piece to kick off, because you're working on that committee, right, Linda?
I'm the chairman of that.
You're the
committee.
chairman of that
I
committee
am.
this year.
Mark, where'd the chowder come from?
The Lafayette House, thank you, Paul. That was donated by the Lafayette House, so we're off the hook for that. And All Phase picked up the gas. So we're in good shape.
Well, Mark, you know what, thank you very much for doing that on behalf of all of us. You made the calls, you made the arrangements, you followed through. You and Mike made the trip, and we appreciate it very much. It was
My
a goodwill
pleasure.
venture, and thank you for what you did
You're
for
welcome.
us. Okay, I mean, past that, it's time for citizens' input. Is anyone here for citizens' input? Hearing none, it being 7:05, we have an application for a license, Andy?
Class 2 license.
I'm getting a headache from this hat.
Getting itchy.
Yeah,
I'm feeling
this
itchy.
is,
Yeah, oh,
Mr. Ishak?
Yes.
Why don't you come up, sir?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Welcome. If you could, just for the record, if you could give Pauline your name,
Neiman Isaac?
and why don't you have a seat? Andy, did you have a chance to look over the submission?
Yeah, he's a new owner of the
Luke Oil.
Blue Girl at 10 Main Street, and they're applying for their Class 2 license for the business, and before the board to obtain approval on the Class 2 license.
Did you just buy it?
Yes, February 1st.
You gonna do anything about the gas prices, or is that out of your control?
I gotta talk to the king of Saudi Arabia, maybe we'll There's no lines, they pulled down that pole of Verizon, so,
Well, I had the good fortune of taking a trip out to Lake Placid, New York over the weekend where the gas was $3.35 a gallon. So I was very happy to come back and pay $3.05, I'll tell you that.
303.
303, well, I'm coming right up afterwards then.
well, I got it from your last one, it was $2.97, so it's
Thursday, 297.
been a while.
Anybody have any questions?
It's for 2 vehicles, right?
Yes,
Do you understand the history behind this? The reason why it's 2 vehicles?
no, actually, right now, with the permit, the previous owner had did it with 5 vehicles.
Right, but he has to go before the ZBA.
Right.
But I have to go.
That's why I was
before
wondering if you knew the
Yeah.
history behind it, because
So-
this was an issue of appearances and with the neighbors.
So right now, gentlemen, just so I'll be clear, would you like me to put only 2 vehicles until I go in front of the ZBA, or you gonna, look the other way if I keep the 3 or 4 up there and until
Oh,
I
on
go?
television, we're gonna look the other way, sure.
He's kidding. The better practice would be to limit it to 2 vehicles until you get the other approval.
Okay.
And then it comes back to us for,
Right,
for a revision.
you'll amend,
Oh,
revise
okay.
the license, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
In town government, we don't have the ability to override zoning.
Okay,
so
no,
we
I just,
can't do
I
that.
wanna make sure that I'm going by the book on everything,
And
so
we
I don't
appreciate
wanna,
that. We appreciate that.
Well, my wife doesn't overlook anything, so we're not gonna overlook.
don't, no.
It
No
hurts me
need
when
to.
James has to explain my sense of humor, so.
Alright, no, it's
thank you.
alright, I got you.
Hey, we're laughing, these hats might be magical up here.
It's just not that often I sit in front of a board of selectmen, so.
Well, it's nice of you to come. The application's in order, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Class 2 license for Neiman Ishak, doing business as Foxborough Main Street Automotive.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All
Thank
right,
you.
good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Alright, thanks.
Thank you.
Usually I like to explain my sense of humor to my kids, so.
When you have to explain a joke, it was probably wasn't worth telling, although I laughed.
You were just being polite.
I think I'm just
No.
laughing at everybody wearing these hats, so.
It is pretty funny. No serious subjects tonight, right, Mr. Muldoon?
No, we hope.
Humility is good for everybody,
It sure is.
but not for me.
I don't agree with that. I think that you're pretty humble. Andy, what's up next?
Mr. Spiegel, regarding the Orpheum.
Mr. Spiegel, please come sit with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Just stay for a couple of minutes.
Just, if you could just give Pauline your name. and-
Sure, Robert Spiegel. I'm a resident of Sharon. And I'm here tonight because I've taken on a project on behalf of the 503C Bay Colony Productions, which is in charge of management of the upkeep of the Orpheum Theater. My wife and I are longtime supporters and patrons of the arts, mostly through the involvement of our 3 daughters. Currently, our 10-year-old is involved in too many programs over there. And I grew up in the area too, and was involved in actually spent quite a bit of time in the theater in the 80s, back when it was a movie theater. But I did a little research through the Town Historical Commission. Jack and Emily Bonin have been very helpful, and it's now reached of age to be listed in the National Historic Registry of Deeds, which has opened up some opportunities for us. The reason I wanted to get involved was, and I say involved, my intent was to paint the front doors, redo the woodwork on the inside. I have Pepsi and Coke vying it out for the snack bar to redo it and mirror the back, and carpet, paint the lobby and paint the ceiling. Turn that side room into an art gallery for local artists so that they could use it as a functional space for meetings and possibly rent it out for additional revenues. I estimate it's going to run me about $10,000 to complete this, and I basically have commitments from local retailers and large corporations for most of the materials. It's the labor that I don't have yet. But this is just a quick fix to the $1 to maybe $2 million that might be needed to restore the building so that it continues to be a functional building, which I'm not sure if you're aware now, but with the people enrolled, we're coming from 22 communities to participate in this building. And when I looked at Bill's calendar of things that don't involve my kids, from the local Y to the Boys Club to, there's so many other organizations that he invites in gratis, because that's the kind of building we want it to be, a community center, a community building. So again, all we're doing as a quick fix right now, painting the front doors. I'm getting rid of those old broken benches. I want to get them replaced with some nice steel heavy-duty benches. I did have Mr. Swanson from the town come over and look at the crack across the front that was caused by a town plow a couple years ago, but he has no recollection of it, and we can't find the records. But
I remember the incident.
Oh,
I remember the incident,
yeah.
and
It's cracked all the way
one of the
across.
things that just happens.
And it's not just an eyesore. It's
It's
now
a
a liability.
safety hazard,
It's a safety hazard. But beyond that, as I said, we're going to paint the lobby and redo the woodwork and recarpet and redo the fixtures. We found out the original colors of the building when it first opened in 1921. So we're bringing it back to that period with fixtures and colors. Two Boston designers have given up their time gratis to, and they're commercial interior designers too, so everything will be done with code. Your carpet, your paints, your electrical. Nothing will be Home Depot fixtures, and I don't mean that against Home Depot. They're actually supporting us, but do you know what I mean? You know, everything will be done up to code, and you know, where we're falling short is labor, and also for us to paint the ceiling in the main room, it involves staging we don't have to get up that high. So I'm going on Charlie Masterson's show tomorrow night to make an appeal. You know, we just want to make sure we get this done over the next few months while we have the materials, because my plans are to bring two individuals. It was interesting for you to talk about the Crafts and Patriots, but I've worked with Myra off and on various projects, and this is the type of project her foundation would like to endow. And when they endow, it's not to put her name on it. It's really to support the community efforts, as you know how active they are in the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. She has a special interest in the arts, and I'm going to invite her here over the summer to walk through the building and show her videotapes of productions that have been done in movies and just different uses for the building. And she's one person. I've also asked Sheldon Adelson and Sumner Redstone. And these are just individuals from the entertainment industry that we've worked with over the years that have supported our projects. I don't know what else I could tell you. We're very, very excited. The Historical Commission just took off with it and has found so much information and is working very fast to do the voluminous amount of paperwork that the state and our federal government are requiring us to do. But it's all falling right into place, and the building meets the requirements. And I think it's a building, as I've watched the green over the last 40 years, it's a building that I think the town of Foxborough and the people here really want to see remain. So for it to remain, I've got to get this $10,000 cleanup done so that we can get the big money to fix the building, because it's falling apart. It's literally falling apart. The foundation is crumbling, and it just needs repair. It needs a heating and air conditioning system. It needs plumbing. It needs electrical. But it's such a viable location and property for us to work in, and I believe I can raise the money to restore it. It's just this beginning phase. To get the people here, I need to clean it up. It doesn't present well right now. And to bring those people here, I need to clean it up. If you've ever looked up at the ceiling, it's just all paint chips and 6 old white dirty ceiling fans that don't work, that are real greasy. And but it's going to look really nice when it's done. So if the town has any suggestions for me for labor to get the work done, the biggest and most expensive piece of it was the materials, and we've pretty much accomplished that. So labor is the big thing now.
James, I worked with your children from the white school, Attleboro. They came up and worked with me. Maybe we could get together again.
From one of the vocational schools?
Yeah.
I can remember doing that years ago. I'm from Brockton, and we had one in Easton, Southeastern Regional. And my dad had them do a cedar closet in my basement once for like a couple $100. They built a cedar closet in our basement. That might be an idea. I don't think they have the staging to get up that high.
No, I don't think that'll be a problem.
I think you've got a couple people on this board that have staging or access to staging. And
Yeah,
of course,
that's been a big problem for us because we've priced out renting it, and it was just cost prohibitive.
The only thing that would be necessary for me to supply you with the equipment to do it would be basically a waiver of liability
Sure.
on my behalf.
Sure, and our insurance would pick it up from there. We're fully covered. I mean, we've
Right.
kept up, I mean, the 503C is managed very well.
and this would be covered under Bill's insurance.
Oh,
Bill
sure.
Bill Cunningham, the director.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we cover full, we carry full comprehensive and liability on the property because it's a public building.
Right, I'm just saying, but as far as,
Specific to equipment. that we-
Exactly.
Oh, most definitely,
If
because our
someone
equipment's all in the ceilings. So we have technicians that come in, that just come in for the day all the time, sound people, lighting people. So we have contractors that come in, and, we have to make sure we're fully covered, so.
They might need to give you a rider or certificate of
right,
insurance.
so
that could-
I'd have
binder.
to contact
Binder included on
my
the binder.
insurance.
I was
company.
wondering if it's more it's great if you have the staging, but do you have the licensed operator for us to put on that, to do the work? It's the labor piece of it. I mean, it's great, the staging,
You're
but it's
painting?
it's painting a ceiling.
Well, I'm not
one
a
ceiling.
painter.
You know what I could do is maybe tomorrow, if we can hook up,
Sure.
I'll reach out to the building trades in the area, and the Norfolk County Labor Council, and see if maybe the District Council of Painters and the various
Carpet layers.
trades. Yeah, the various
Right.
trades.
Very little carpet. It's 2 strips down the runway to the
Sure.
stage and the front lobby.
Yeah,
Just
maybe,
very little carpet.
hopefully maybe in the next couple of days, we can set something up and see if the trades would want to get in there and work. I know it's something that they do in other communities, and I'm sure would be willing to help, provided that they have the laborers, off the job, ready to work.
Great. The plans for the renovation or the restoration, which the 503C is working on, and I'm not really actively involved in it, involve taking the inside and doing stadium seating up to the back so that it creates all that office space that we don't have now for the classes that are being managed in the three programs that are running in there, which is nice. Our director is a big guy, and he's in a closet for an office that is, he has to turn sideways to get through. And
It keeps him humble. It's all
It keeps
right.
him humble.
It's all right.
Does he have a window? No, not Arthur, the big guy. Does he have a window in
No,
his?
no window.
No window
No
in the
window.
closet.
No.
Okay.
And that's his office, and he runs this, and it is his life. I mean, he lives this till midnight every single day, 7 days a week. So, but anyway, again, as I said, I'm here because I think it's a building that people of Foxborough would like to see remain on the green. I know I would as a local resident. And in our survey, we were really surprised to find out right now there's 20 people. We're coming from 22 towns to come to class in this building or to see a play. No, that doesn't include the patrons. I'm just talking about the people who pay every week to come to use the building. which is, and we can grow that. We can grow that with the right marketing. So
Well, thanks for-
appreciate the
thanks for coming
opportunity.
up. Anything-
So, do you have a business card?
Absolutely, I'll give you my
Okay.
number and.
Oh, I was gonna say,
tomorrow
I've
and
already taken liberty of putting yours on here.
then- Yeah, the best.
Great.
Efficient.
And maybe we can put something together and help you out.
Wonderful.
And you not being from Foxborough, being from Sharon, it's great to see that you are looking to support our local institution.
Sure.
But many people here are either partnered with or have used the Orpheum, and the Orpheum, I feel, is a great community resource. And,
Yeah.
gratified to see you wanna come out and support them, and you're right, the
Yeah.
building is falling apart, but at the same time, the spirit there is such that it'll,
Yeah.
It'll work,
Unfortunately, the
so
spirit
great
won't
to
hold
hear.
it up.
but it's great that people like you are coming forward and
Good.
taking the initiative.
All right. Well, thank you for
Well, Robert,
your
thank
help.
you.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
calling.
Thank you. Thank you all.
We talked
Bye-bye.
about it.
Good night.
Mr. Gallo.
We have Patty Street here to speak on a Relay for Life. Okay?
Patty, please come up.
Hello.
Hello.
We ask everyone to give Pauline their name, but yours is an easy one.
Yes,
Patty
mine,
Street.
Patty Street. Very easy to spell, you can abbreviate it if you want. I'm here for the Relay for Life. We would like to get permission to hold the fundraiser for the 5th year. We're very excited. To date, we have raised over $500,000, and we have the community support. You guys have given us the support every year. The schools are on board, police, fire, community. We have a lot of support, and right now at the Y, everybody's signing up at the same time, so we're hoping it's a go.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about it, in case there's somebody watching that's interested, might not exactly know what it is you do for the Relay of Life.
Okay,
Who are you raising money for them?
All right, the Relay for Life is an American Cancer Society fundraiser. It's their top fundraiser. It's been going on since 1985. In Massachusetts, there's 85 communities that do the relay, so it's quite popular and growing. Teams raise money by walking around the track. It's an 18-hour event. It starts on Friday, June 20th at 6 p.m. and ends at noon on Saturday, the 21st. We hold it at the Ahern Middle School. And we have teams of a minimum of 8, maximum of 15. Shows good community support and raising money for a good cause.
And the teams go out into the community and get pledges from
Yes.
individuals and businesses, and that's how you raise your money?
Yep. They also do their own mini fundraisers. We have teams that kids sell lemonade and make money from lemonade. A lot of businesses will match donations. We're lucky to have that. Invencis last year donated $25,000 between teams and matching. So we have a lot of good support. We do fundraisers within that. We have a silent auction that we've gotten things from the Patriots, the Revolution. We've been able to auction off things and make money that way as well.
If someone wanted to organize a team, how would they go about? Would they contact you, or how do you publicize the event and get people interested that might not have been interested last year?
We are in the Sun Chronicle and the Foxborough Reporter almost every week. We have a website. If you just go to the AmericanCancerSociety.org, put in our zip code, it will bring you right to our website. It has all the contact information of myself, the other co-chair, several Foxborough people that are on the committee. There's 18 of us. It takes a lot of people to run an event this size.
Well, you don't get a more worthy cause than
Yeah,
yours.
yeah. Unfortunately, we read about it in our own newspaper. It's happening every day. It's something new coming up, and a lot of young people it's affected.
Well, one of the things in the flyer that you've given us, it's an overnight American Cancer Society event that celebrates survivorship
Yes.
and raises money to fight cancer.
We do welcome survivors. We have a special survivor lap. Last year we had 100 survivors. Lafayette House put on an on-site dinner for them. So it's all about remembering, those that we've lost, celebrating those that are surviving, and fighting back. That's the campaign, is to fight back. And we're finding ways to fight back, and we're seeing people live longer with the money that's raised for the technology.
And Penny, how did you get interested in this?
Like I'm sure everybody at this table has had either a friend or a family member battle cancer. Myself, I'm lucky my mother's a 2-time survivor. My sister was not as lucky. Lost my in-laws, the list goes on.
Well, their loss is our gain. Thank you for organizing this event on behalf of the town of Foxborough, anyway, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Good work, Danny. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the Relay for Life to use the Foxborough Hearn School for the annual Relay for Life walkathon.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. See, 5-0.
Excellent, I love that.
That's a landslide.
I'm not happy with those hats, but
We aren't either.
Either way.
Okay.
I had to say that.
Andy, I got a sixth one right here.
I believe we have
Big
11
one.
months and 1 week to get over it.
We're salvaging what little joy we can.
Is there anything else that you need from the town?
No, we have a lot of support. Of course, it would be nice if we saw all you guys there with teams, and we always do see quite a few of you there, so. The support has been awesome, and it just grows every year.
Do that.
Alrighty.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah.
We're back.
Are we on the
Paul
Beck,
has it.
are we on the Beck Television Center again?
Paul didn't comb his hair, so he has to keep the
Yeah,
hat.
right.
I, on the other hand, did comb my hair, though.
Why not, we were interrupting another channel, so I had to shut it off and turn it back on.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
things happen.
So our equipment will be upgraded soon to allow for taping capabilities as well as whatever else.
Jay, wipe that smirk off your face.
We have
Not that funny.
Mr. Henderson, Leo Potter, and Representative Barros here to discuss with the board proposal on regional sewer district.
Excellent.
Wanna come up?
Due to our headache, you won't got much time tonight, gentlemen.
Yeah, Phil, what size hat? We wanna make sure we,
We're not even gonna ask for the names, all three, persons sitting at
It is
the table
election
are well
season.
known to our top-notch stenographer. Right, Pauline?
Yeah, I know all these people.
Is that a good thing?
I've seen them before.
Well, can you pass one and pass it around? Thank you. So you're presenting us with a sewer.
Something like that, something like that. Presenting you with an opportunity. First, I want to thank you all for taking the time out tonight with your schedule to sit with us. And we might have one more guest if we go on a little long, Jonathan Brooks, who has been the representative for the Water and Sewer Commission on our sewer subcommittee. Jonathan has been with us, I think, since February, as we've moved forward in this process of trying to identify opportunity within the three towns that we currently serve together now. A bit of history, Mansfield has owned and operated the sewer plant since the late 80s. It was built initially with the intention of having the three communities come together. And it ended up at the end of the day that both Norton and Foxborough chose not to enter into that agreement back 20 or so. 25 years ago. And since then, Norton and Foxborough have been treated as customers to the Mansfield plant. And it has caused some angst over the years with disputes in interpretation of the intermunicipal agreement. And as a result, it really forced us to take a hard look at that, where it is coming up for its termination. It will end in 2010, and to get out ahead of what could be, you know, a challenge. So, as I mentioned, I think at your spring town meeting last year, when there was a lot of discussion as to whether or not the town should pursue the Gillette Stadium option, I had suggested that perhaps there could be an opportunity for a more regional system. And it was on the basis that I felt in speaking with a number of people at the state level that really oversee the whole operation of the sewer, that we could get a waiver with regard to the Intermunicipal Transfer Act, which basically says in order to take water from one town and have it, recharged in another or cleaned and discharged in another town, under the statute, you had to bring the water back. And that was the $11 million question as to whether or not that would be so cost prohibitive that Foxborough couldn't afford to do it. Quite frankly, Mansfield couldn't afford to do it. And Norton, being at the end of the line where the plant's located, would be able to because their water literally would have to find a site for recharge. So in discussions with the state, it was determined that we had a valid argument in that we viewed this as the fact that the three communities share the same aquifer. Our water source is ultimately the same. And that Interbasin Transfer Act was really designed for those communities that had separate aquifers, different water source. And that if you drained one and put it in another, you're going to drain one. And that it would be required to be recharged in some fashion. So I, along with the help of Senator Timilty, Representative Kafka, Representative Poirier, and Representative D'Amico, who represent these three communities, began a process of inviting, discussing, and meeting with the state entities who again manage the affairs really of the treatment plant. And at this particular stage, we have presented through Leo's efforts in Earth Tech, as well as the Water and Sewer Commission here in Foxborough, a request for a waiver of the intermunicipal transfer agreement. And if that waiver is granted, that is our ticket, if you will, to truly bring these three communities together and avoid the prohibitive cost of trying to bring water back to the specific areas of which it originated. And we've been able to prove, again, through Leo's work and the commissioners as well as Earth Tech, that it's such a low impact because of the Neponset aquifer and the Canoe River, the exchange that takes place up on Route 1, basically, it's an equal offset. So that we don't have to put ourselves in fear that we're draining the aquifer in Foxborough, if you will. So what we're looking at doing is creating a regional authority that would oversee the plant operation and the asset, if you will, and that each community would still be responsible for their own infrastructure. So nothing's disbanded. It's just really kind of bringing it together for an operation and maintenance sort of an approach.
Someone in my family goes shopping and they spend a bunch of money, then they tell me what they save.
Right, exactly. And quite frankly, this is a very expensive proposition regardless. The costs are huge. It's a huge endeavor and a huge commitment by the community to support such a thing. But at the same time, I hate saying that you're going to save X number of dollars when in fact it's those dollars that we wouldn't have to spend under this approach. So if I could, just ask Phil to kind of go through the history of how we got here with the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, who was involved in that, when it was done, and what was the outcome of that. Community representatives and what we've asked of the other communities and where they've been. So I'd like to just start, if you could, Phil, with a review of how we got here.
I did want to just add a little to what Jay was saying. A year ago, none of us, and I guess I should just speak for myself, I didn't give Jay much of a chance to get that waiver on the internet. And we're bogged down and cost the town a lot of money and time on the interbasin transfer on the Witch Pond project. In some respects, we felt maybe the state was a little unreasonable, but they were pretty firm in their stance that we were sending, because we had a flow going over to Mansfield or Norton on our sewer system, they were projecting that over to the water side. So I didn't think that Jay could get it done. But I think with the combination of his efforts and his team, as he mentioned, the people working with him, and also I think a lot of it was the change in administration, and the government agencies are looking at things a little differently. A regional concept makes sense, so I give Jay a lot of credit for the people on convincing the people on Beacon Hill that maybe they should start looking at things that make sense for a regional and for this area of the state. Going back, I think I wanted to talk a little bit about the CWMP, not to go into too much detail, but to give a little perspective. On the April 4th, 2000, there was a town meeting. Article 3 dealt with the CWMP appropriation of $680,471. Dealt with the, including without limitation, the evaluation of a number of alternatives alternatives to address the water resource and wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal needs of the town. So as the name infers, it was a pretty comprehensive process, and the article passed 168 in the affirmative to 4 in the negative. It also outlined a process by which that committee would be made up, that committee that ran that 5-year evaluation. There was one person from the Board of Selectmen, one from the Board of Water and Sewer, appointed by the Water and Sewer, one person appointed by the Planning Board, one person appointed by the Board of Health, by the Advisory Committee, and by the Conservation Committee, and Commission, sorry, and then 5 citizens ad hoc. So that was the makeup. Also in there, it was a stipulation that the 5 citizens ad hoc would be appointed jointly by the Board of Water and Sewer and by the Selectmen. So I think that the thought and the process that went into this was we wanted to make this as inclusive as possible and reflective of the town, and that we covered as much as we could, as much as concerns and from different parts of the community. That was, as I said earlier, that article passed, and there was a 5-year study. I could just briefly read into the record some of the names of the people who were appointed to that committee. There was Ernie Hirsch was the chairperson. Jonathan Brooks, who will be here around 8 o'clock, was the vice chair. Eric Avedon, Rebecca Senner, Gordon Green, William Greeter, Joan Sozio, Greg Spear, who was a representative of the Route 1 interests, Michael Stanton, who was the representative of the Selectmen, and Robert Bodie from the Conservation Commission. So this was a study that went on for 5 years, had 4 phases. Each phase had to be approved by the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the regulatory, and there was a final report. The final report addressed 3 recommendations. The recommendation we're going to be talking about tonight was included as one of those solutions. So I think that what we're doing is we're staying within the confines of that recommendation. We're not just putting that report aside and coming up with a whole different, based on the current circumstances, a whole different scenario. Everything we're going to talk about going forward, and everything we talked about last year at the Springtown meeting, were all within the boundaries of that comprehensive wastewater management plan. So I appreciate your indulgence in at least letting me, because what I want to keep emphasizing to people is that we're working on that template. We're working on a 5-year study that's been reviewed by the town, had scientific input from the Board of Health, and was finally approved by the state. And what we're talking about tonight with the regional solution falls within the boundaries of that report.
Okay.
And I think at the time that report was written, again, the mood of the day, within the state agencies that oversee this, was not to move on that Interbasin Transfer Act. And it wasn't until, again, we started to push on that and lean on that a bit, again, with the cooperation of the other 2 towns, because if we couldn't, do that together, we weren't going to get to the point that we're at tonight. So just a little bit of a few other tidbits. We have been meeting, number one, we've met, I believe, 4 or 5 times as a regional entity. The folks that make up Water and Sewer from Foxborough, the commissioners, Water and Sewer commissioners from Norton, and the Board of Selectmen, who act as water and sewer commissioners from Mansfield. So we've had 4 meetings when we've brought that group together to update them and their representatives of those entities, what the subcommittee's been doing. We'd established the subcommittee early on. We took 2 representatives from each of the communities and sat together as a group, 7 or 8 of us. We typically would have 1 or 2 consultants from the communities with us. CDM was one, Camp Dresser McGee, and the other was Weston and Sampson representing Norton. Camp Dresser McGee has been handling the plant retrofit that's been ongoing now. Basically, I guess we could say the plant that's in operation now has reached its life expectancy. So it was, what, a year ago, Leo, a year and a half ago, we floated a $13 million bond.
Actually, it was last spring.
Last spring.
They floated the bond to do the first phase of the upgrades to the existing plant.
Yeah, to make that whole, and again, to accommodate the flow that exists today. And the flow that exists today is I guess we call it surface water discharge. The water goes through the plant, is clean, and then it's discharged into, ultimately, the Taunton River and into Narragansett Bay. And we do have a limit by the state of 3.2 million gallons. That is the limit that plant will ever be allowed to discharge on a surface basis. Going forward, again, through that Interbasin Transfer Act, the state is saying whatever you do in addition to that, you need to recharge. You have to purify everything and then recharge the water, put it back into the ground, back into the aquifer. So under the regional plan, not only...
The aquifer meaning back into the host community.
Correct.
Which is drawn not by aquifer lines, but by...
Border.
Just borders.
Correct.
Random borders that were set back in...
Right. And quite frankly, one of the arguments to the state was well, guess how far Foxborough is going to take their line? They're going to take it to Spring Street, or County Street.
Right.
And they're going to dump it right there on the line,
Right.
and it's going to flow into Mansfield. And Mansfield's going to take it right to the Mansfield-Norton line. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. That's, you know what I mean?
And
So,
that's been the issue all along. This has been a political mandate as opposed to a scientific reason.
Right.
And you're right, because we have the 22 acres off of Spring Street that we've
right,
held in reserve,
identified,
so,
exactly. So, that being said, we approached it, again, what we needed to do, kind of puzzle pieces, was address the issues of the state with the Intermunicipal Transfer Act, and B, address the issues of Mansfield being the landlord, if you will, and the tenants being Foxborough and Norton. And the disputes that have taken place over the years, you could write a book, and just continually battling about, Mansfield's influence on whether somebody could tie in Foxborough, Title V flow, same in Norton, and one of the things that we immediately addressed when we started our subcommittee meetings was we needed to get those the ongoing litigation resolved and settled, and we did. We got that out of the way in relatively short order, because we weren't going to sit in a room together if we were still sitting in court, on 2 sides of the aisle. So we were able to get that done. And quite frankly, I think everybody recognized early on that there was a huge cost reduction if we could work together. So leave the weapons at the door, and let's start anew and start with a fresh approach to this. Leo has been a representative on the subcommittee, as is Jonathan Brooks, and have done both yeoman's work in working with Representative or Selectman George Dentino from Mansfield, and Lee Azanera have represented Mansfield. Lee is our DPW director and is in charge with plant oversight. And then we've had Don Brown and Dwayne Knapp from Norton. And all 6 have been just awesome. And everyone has approached it with an equal footing. There hasn't been anybody that has had an advantage or disadvantage. So it's been a great working committee. And I truly have enjoyed and made some friends, over the course of time of trying to work together. So our initial discussions is, how do we do it? What does it look like? And initially we started messing around with what does a new intermunicipal agreement look like, and that soon got trashed, and we talked about regional sewer district. And the regional sewer district would just be that. It would be, as I said before, it would be responsible for the maintenance and operation of the physical plant. It would mean that everyone, whoever had ownership, i.e. Mansfield, would throw those chips into the table, and allow for the three communities to share in ownership. If you look at basically page 2 of this handout,
Well,
kind of-
let's,
oh,
let's,
should
let's
we
start
back
on the,
up?
yeah, let's start on
Go
the page, because I think you touched on it briefly, but I think it's important for people to understand. Looking at the front page, it talks about the regional sewer district. That's kind of on the level of the plant itself. There will be a regional authority that runs the plant, and there will be representatives from each community that are on that board of directors. We'll go a little bit more into the representation on that committee or that directorship, but that entity will solely be responsible for the running of the plant. They will allocate to each of the regional or each of the user communities their costs based on the percentage of their ownership of the plant, but they will be responsible for the level of just operating the plant. Going down to the next level talks a little bit about the member community. Each member community will then be responsible for their own capital projects, their own infrastructure. They will build and maintain their own pump stations, interceptors, piping. They will be responsible for that. So I think that it's kind of a layered approach, that it's important to understand that the town will be responsible for their own internal infrastructure, sewer allocation. They'll have X amount of flow. They will distribute that flow based on need and based on what's best for the town and the ratepayers. So I think, and then it goes down to the actual user, which will be connecting to the community infrastructure, and then by use of the betterments. So I think it's important we understand that layered.
So the towns will do the billing, the towns are gonna do, again, whatever needs to be done within the confines of the town. Any impact the town might have on the next town over, say for an example, as Foxborough's capacity is increased, if there were a situation where a line comes into Mansfield, and because of Foxborough's increased flow, it disrupts the ability for Mansfield to take care of their customers, their users, then Foxborough would have to remedy with Mansfield, maybe expand the size of that line or seek another, entryway into the interceptor. But again, it would be done by town, which quite frankly eliminates some of the problematic situations that we have now. So Mansfield wouldn't be weighing in. So I think that's important, and thanks for going over that, Phil. What we've done, based on the comprehensive wastewater management plans that all three communities have embarked on, and they did it basically at the same time, we spent between the three towns probably close to $1.4 million to develop these comprehensive wastewater management plans. And they were done somewhat in isolation, because they were done with, trying to meet the state's needs to have a local solution. So they weren't done collectively. But what we've been able to do is take each of them, pile them up, and we could probably fill this desk quite easily with all the paper. I mean, it's a pretty substantial, as Phil mentioned, it was a 5-year process here in Foxborough, and equally the same in both Mansfield and Norton. So based on that data, we were able to determine to some extent a projected flow need. How much flow or how much use is Foxborough going to need, Mansfield going to need, and Norton going to need? So on page 2, it kind of outlines what we currently are allowed under allocation. Foxborough has 700,000 gallons of allocation a day. Mansfield has 2 million, and Norton has 600,000, for a total of 3.3 million gallons per day.
Which is the existing plant at in Norton.
In Norton, that's correct.
That's plant 1 is the existing plant.
And that is being, as I said, retrofitted. Each community is sharing in the cost of that based on the billing fees back as customers to Foxborough and Norton. So we're sharing that in that equally. Phase 2 is basically what the CWMPs have come up with. It's a 20-year plan. It's how much is needed for expansion in each of the three communities. So you'll see under section 2 there, Foxborough needs 500,000. Mansfield needs 400,000. Norton would need 300,000 for an expansion of 1.2 million. Now, with that 1.2 million, what we have to do is we have to discharge or recharge that into the aquifer. So at the end of the line, or as close to that as possible, we need to find a site where we can discharge 1.2 million gallons of water a day. And we are working on that as we speak. There's land owned by Norton, there's land owned by Mansfield, there's land owned by the state, and there's some private landowners that we are working with as we speak, trying to, identify and test those areas to make sure that they can accommodate that. There also has to be some redundancy built into the system, meaning that, you might have it at site A, but you need to have a backup for that recharging site B. We have identified initially that in Mansfield, we've got approval or, kind of a handshake that 400,000 gallons could be recharged at the airport site, which is, again, fairly close and right off the interceptor line for those purposes. And we are working with Wheaton College and some others in the town of Norton to ID places where additional flow recharge could be put. So we're confident that we are going to be able to find a place to put the water, because again, this is all for naught if we can't find a place to put that water for recharge. So basically, Plant 1 is owned, or under the regional concept, would be owned, 21% of it would be owned and paid for by Foxborough, 61% of that paid and owned by Mansfield, and 18% by Norton. So the capital expenditures associated with Plant 1 and the percentage of allocation associated with that would be billed against Plant 1. Phase 2 shows that 500,000 gallons means that of the 1.2 million gallons per day expansion in total, Foxborough would own 42% of that, Mansfield would own 33% of that, and 25% to Norton. So the capital investment would be made for each town based on the flow that has been, reported and recommended in the comprehensive wastewater management plan. So ultimately, at the end of the day, 27% would be owned by Foxborough, 53% of the total by Mansfield, and 20% by Norton. So again, everything's based off of what you build for is what you buy from a capital perspective, and actual flow, real live actual gallonage being sent in by each member community would be billed on an operation and maintenance basis. So capital is what you build for your capacity, what you'd have in reserve for your capacity as your community extends into areas of critical needs. And, a lot of those areas have already been determined by the CWMP, or are determined by the CWMP, based on Title V failures, based on just plain old health issues. I mean, what we're talking about is health. And we're talking about preserving the aquifer from its demise if you don't correct some of these systems that are failing. So that's how that piece would work.
Before we go forward, I just want to, we're going to go looking at the two scenarios, but I think it's important to keep in the back of your mind that Plant 1 or Phase 1 is not going to go away. If we come up with an in-town solution, say we don't want to expand in the regional plant with Mansfield, we still have a 21% ownership of the plant in Mansfield. We will not walk away from that. We will still always have that relationship. So I think it's, when we go to the next page, I think it's important to
Because I
realize
think the next page is what really give you a sense of the cost reduction by the regional approach. We'll try to go through this and again certainly answer any questions because there's a lot of numbers here. Option 1 is all the flow to the RWWTF, which is short for
Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility.
So those of you that want to play Scrabble after, you can use that as the winning word. The betterment is the same with both options. We're comparing this to the Gillette in-town solution. Again, as Phil had mentioned, and you got to keep in mind that what we're doing right now would remain, but the expansion of that plant wouldn't take place because Foxborough wouldn't be sending any more to it. So the betterment build out is the same because we have to extend and create a sewer district and provide for according to the CWMP.
And for the sake of review, these are draft numbers, okay? And also for the sake of an equalized evaluation, we're putting that betterment cost across both projects, so we can at least evaluate it on a one-for-one basis.
Just in time, Jonathan.
Mr. Brooks.
And realize that the betterment costs associated The betterment costs outlined are for the full 13 areas identified in the CWMP. As you remember, the option we proposed last spring addressed 4 of those areas. It was just that those 4 of the 13 areas, they took up almost 75% of the equalized users. So last spring, we tried to identify, get the biggest bang for the buck, and those 4 areas we identified were I think there were 1,300 equalized users out of the identified 1,700 in the CWMP. So we were going after the high concentration areas. But this full betterment addresses all 13 areas in the CWMP. Go ahead.
And the numbers have been brought up to a standard that are the same, so that we're not using old numbers and new numbers. I mean, it's all relative as we look at it today. We've made those adjustments. The capital cost to expand to those 13 areas is an outlay of $10 million to build the plan, to build phase 2, to allow for the 400,000 gallons of use, again, capacity. So that's 10 million versus a $13 million outlay to build additional capacity at Gillette. So there's a $3 million reduction.
Which they're paying for? Is that
That's
number?
the amount that's left over that the town would have to pay.
This is for infrastructure improvements, for
Town's
piping,
our cost.
pumping.
Our cost.
That's for the extra 150,000 gallon plant addition that would need to be done, and also for the leach fields off of the stadium property.
Because the stadium,
That's what the 13 million is.
right, and the state, so I need to make it clear, the stadium cannot accommodate, I don't know what the number of gallons is, but it can't accommodate additional recharge as a result of adding these 13 critical needs areas, okay? So you're spending money, you're building I look at it as like you're building 2 systems. It doesn't matter how, you gotta get the water back to recharge. Again, the Interbasin Transfer Act requires no additional surface discharge, so you gotta put it somewhere. And you've identified in the CWMP areas which you could move that additional recharge, but it means building a redundant plant. You gotta pump it to get it there, and then you gotta pump it to get it out. So again, we've taken out that cost through the regional approach, again, sending our entire flow to the regional plant.
So Jay, if I can just interrupt for a second, so basically, that number should almost be 20 million should be more than 20 million, because obviously the Patriots offered to build it. So if they weren't offering and we were building it, that $13 million number would be more like 21 million. Is that how to understand it?
It would probably be more than that.
25.5, I think.
So, Phil, can you give me a number that you think would stick, just so I have it in my head, if we were paying for that?
I mean, you're looking at the elimination of building if you're looking at the bottom here, summary of flows, you're looking at under the all flows or option 2, you're looking at stadium plant 1.
I'm looking at plant capital.
Right, but
Row
I'm trying to, yep, but I'm giving you, if you look over to where it says under summary of flows, it says stadium plant 1, 200 plus 50,000 gallons, and then stadium plant 2 is 325, and stadium plant 3 is 100. Those are the 3 that would probably cost, I guesstimate it, probably higher than $28 million to build those 3.
Not including the 13 that's on that infrastructure to get it there.
I would say that it wouldn't, 13 probably plus the 15.
Keep in mind
28.
that what's on there for plant 1 and for plant 3, that's for the stadium use and their
EDA.
Right.
So if you're, I don't know if you're looking at including.
I'm just
that
looking
or
for
not
our
including-
number. That's what I'm.
Yeah,
really
what it would
looking
cost you to
for.
build a plant?
Yeah.
Basically.
If they weren't building us a plant, what would our number?
28 million probably, and that, again, round number. And it's,
Obviously, because we have to, we have to pay more than them to build it.
Right, it costs us more.
costs you more, but at the same time, one of the things, again, and you'll see when we talk about operation and maintenance, I mean, the plant, the size of it and scope of it, I mean, there's a cost to getting that going. But to process, 1 million gallons versus 4.2, it's not necessarily exponential. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, but I just, because I'll go further with this later, because.
Okay.
Yeah, I can get you, I could talk to Bob Bell and get you some firmer numbers. I just hate to give a number out, this is just for draft. This is something we
Right.
haven't, because we didn't want to sit around and wait for the final numbers and then lose some time.
No, I
so we-
understand, I'm with you on this one, Phil.
But I understand, but that's why I'm saying, I will talk to Bob Bell, and through Leo, he can get you those numbers. You want to know what the value is, if.
Well, my whole point is, and this is why last year I was very skeptical, and we all went to town meeting, we know we lost by one vote to get the state, go with the Patriots in this, because I didn't know there was I knew there was a municipal option, I didn't know Jay and yourselves were gonna do such a great job to find it and make it happen, what you're doing here.
That didn't happen, that didn't happen until
After.
months after town meeting in the summer. This
Exactly,
happened.
exactly.
So
But I'm saying-
at that time, this was a no.
Right, it was a no,
No.
and we all were trying to figure out what to do, and I thought we were moving too fast, but it looks like you all put your heads back together and you made something happen here, and I'm really happy to see this. But my point is, I've always thought the Mansfield option might work out, but I don't think it leaves the stadium option dead at all, because I think it's gonna become very useful. You can tell me, because I wanna know if I'm right or wrong on this, because I'm on the zoning board review committee, and we've had many people come in, talk to us about what's gonna happen on Route 1. Convention center here, and this here, and this here. And I think that plant up there is gonna become very needed to expand Route 1 for all the private industry, not just the crafts organizations industry up there. And I think that's where.
We'll get to that, all right? Just hold
So
that
it's
for a
coming.
second. Yeah,
All right.
I mean, there's just discussion about that, all right?
Okay.
But I still want you to focus on the regional for a moment, okay? Because you're gonna see the economies of scale come through by not having to operate another facility.
Okay.
Okay? So let's just jump to the operation and maintenance for a second. We're looking at, over the next 20 years, spending some $27 million, 13.5 million, or 1.3 million 50 per year. 1,350,000. I'll say it right eventually. These numbers are getting big. Went
It's
to
only
Mansfield
money.
High School, it's just money.
It's only money, Jay, don't worry about it.
So 27 million, if you get into operating, all flows to the Patriot plant, for a lack of a better term, you're looking at $44 million. So there's a $17 million delta on operation and maintenance by joining with the two other communities. It's a huge, huge savings. Again, operation and maintenance, that's what our sewer bill, along with our capital cost, when we get to the ratepayer, that's what this is gonna look like. So that's a significant reduction. And again, those are today's dollars, and that is a result of the three communities coming together, one entity, if you will, to manage and operate that plant. So that's a significant number. I don't know, and I'm probably not qualified to say, and maybe Leo could talk a little bit about it, or Jonathan, or Phil, but by the existing infrastructure that we have, we can do things to remedy some situations rather quickly without a tremendous outpouring of capital. Would you
Yes.
care to just comment on that, Leo? I think.
In other words, if the original approach goes and the town is able to capture the full use of the 700,000 gallons we have at Mansfield by taking over all the contracts, there are areas that are right in need and with really very little infrastructure, maybe just a connection charge, and get some of these areas that are needed, that are peripheral to the town of Mansfield, that are adjacent to a Mansfield sewer, or one of our sewers goes by there. Those needed areas could connect right in. So there's a opportunity for some of the other needs areas to tie in right up front with right away, without having to wait for our infrastructure to be constructed or the treatment plant to be built.
Are you saying sharing pipes, Leo?
Well, we have existing infrastructure now. We have 5 entry points into Mansfield right
Yeah,
now.
okay.
So we have existing infrastructure from the town, the center of town, out on Moore Street, I think what,
Street,
County Street, one of the areas Leah's talking
Central
about, one of the
Street.
critical needs areas is Brookside. It was identified along with two other areas in town, Sears Estates and Greenview. But given its proximity out on Summer Street area, it's not close, but we could build a pipe down to Moore Street and connect them in. So there's existing infrastructure going to Mansfield, we would just expand that a little. We wouldn't have to build all new piping and all new pump stations like we would if we went up to the stadium. That was the big nut last spring. That was the cost of getting everything force mained and pumped up to the Route 1 area. Right now, we could conceivably, if we went into this regional authority, we could start putting flow from the downtown area right into Mansfield right now without any construction. If there was an in-building, the auto parts wanted to be a restaurant, we could increase the flow for that entity without doing anything major. So I think that's kind of the point. We have that existing infrastructure going to Mansfield now. We would just complement it with hooking up existing, parcels in town that were identified in the CWMP.
So it really is, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we all of us represent the ratepayer. And what we had said originally, when we started down this path of, working together, was that the regional sewer district exists to serve in the best interest of the sewer needs of the member communities in an economically and environmentally sound manner. The design of the regional plant in its operation would last at least 100 years. We're trying to work ahead. We're trying to look ahead and to create something that has the ability to stand on its own for 100 years. The vision of the regional sewer district should be independent of the current individuals involved in formulating the vision or involved in the transition process. It's the intent of the regional sewer district to retain the existing personnel through the transition period to the extent possible. So we are working with each other, each community, trying to iron out some of the differences. Information comes in at every meeting. We've been meeting basically every 2 weeks. And again, we're compiling a list of what that regional agreement would look like. We didn't touch on, but we should probably now, is a little bit about how that board of directors would work. And Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind, you're good at this. This is Jonathan's piece here.
For anybody who
It's-
doesn't, Jonathan's been, as Jay has said, has played a very critical role in the renegotiation of the intermunicipal agreement. He's a representative of our board along with Leo. He's also a past water and sewer commissioner. He was also the vice chair of the CWMP. So he's very knowledgeable and versed in the kind of the concept that he's one of the big banner carriers for this.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
because he's really felt strongly, consistently, that it makes sense for the town and for the ratepayers. So, for anyone who doesn't know Jonathan, you're on.
Actually, there's a lot of information in this little handout that is the work that the group has done to try to envision how this regional authority would work long-term. There's still some questions that need to be ironed out as to what the transition would be from how things are right now with Mansfield owning the plant and having to add more leaching capacity in Norton. But what we've been working on is trying to look at really how this would look after all that transition takes place. And then we would worry about those other details later. And a lot of this is based on in Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 21, Section 28, which provides for creating a sewer district that would involve more than one town or city. And in that, they prescribe how many board members would sit on that committee, and it's based on population. So the cutoff, I believe, for 2 members is, I think it's 25,000 residents. And then at that point, you would have 3 members representing that community. And then if you go over 50,000 or greater, you get 4 representatives.
So the way it works out is that Foxborough and Norton would have 2, and Mansfield would have 3. And that also, I think, works for Mansfield's concerns about giving up a lot of control since they've had full control over the plant since it's been built. And I think it works out for us because when you look at what's required for majorities and so forth, it kind of puts us all on an equal footing. And that really, you need the participation of at least 2 communities to make things happen. Now that I've said that, it's also important to realize how limited this regional authority is, in that it's really just controlling the treatment plant. It's not directly involved in the infrastructure within each community. That's still under control of the local boards of sewer, water and sewer. So, in that regard, I think the initial reaction was that there's a lot of control giving up. I think when you look at it closer, there really isn't a lot of control given up because it's so limited in what's being done.
And I will tell you that we made a presentation to the Mansfield Board of Selectmen 2 weeks ago. And we were rewarded with a 5-0 vote to support moving ahead, and they support it completely, as did the Norton Board of Selectmen, 5-0. So we've been able to address, at least with the leadership in the community, that issue about giving up control, which I think is huge. And I've had a number of residents come in, to my office and say, "What are you doing? Why is Mansfield giving up this treatment plant?" And I show them the numbers. He says, "Is it worth $9 million to the ratepayer?" I think so. And again, with the limited scope of what the folks will be doing at that board, directing the operation of the plant, it's a win-win. So we've had full support of both communities. Again, next steps are going to be to hopefully achieve the same from this board, but also go to town meeting, because we'll need town meeting approval in all 3 communities to make this happen. And we're going to need to lean on you folks and others to provide the leadership and the support to us in order to deliver this. So that's the deliverable, I guess.
Yeah, and I do want to add that I think it was the 13th, last week, we met with the advisory committee. We had a brief meeting with them. Was that 2.5 hours?
Yeah, something like that.
And it was very good. And Lorraine's here. But it was a very good meeting. There were a lot of tough questions. There was a lot of discussion. And I think it's important for us to build that, the information, to get the information out there. There was a meeting this week with Randy and Andy, with Leo, Bill Early from our board, and Bob Bell and Jonathan, just to talk about the numbers and talk about what the impacts are to the town, to the taxpayers, if there are any, and ratepayers. And Randy has that financial background, and Andy has his finger on the pulse of the town. So it was important. We're trying to build that consensus, and we're trying to get as many people to look at this, tell us we're on the right track, the wrong track. And I think what Jay's looking for is, from the concept standpoint, as we're saying, these are numbers, these are draft numbers, we're just looking at it from, but I think what Jay's looking for, and if I can speak for him, is from a concept standpoint, how does this board feel about the track that we're taking?
100% better than last June or July. I really applaud it. I think this is fantastic. You guys really took and I was waving the flag the most. I didn't like the idea last time, and I'll admit that publicly. And you guys took a good knock, and I think you've come back 100% and bounced back and won the Super Bowl for us. This is great. I think this is a great plan, and I'm really, really pleased to hear this.
I think it's important for everybody to look at the problem. If we're going to get serious about addressing our sewer problem, when we look at these numbers, the regional approach is absolutely the best approach, the less costly approach, and the best value to the ratepayer to take care of the problem.
And at the same time, now, the betterments aren't going north from the center, they're coming this way. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, everything's gonna flow through ultimately downhill to Mansfield, and then from there into Norton. And, you know, again, there's pump stations along the way and the interceptor and so forth to keep things, actually, the interceptor's all gravity. So there's a lot of cost reduction because it does, you know, it flows downhill. And so everything would focus and come this way.
Yeah, the other thing is you won't need to do leaching fields in the rec fields and the leaching fields at Spring Street.
Oh, I understand that, but will you let me know when I can go back to the other one? Because I think the other one's important too.
Yeah, I think in a minute, I think what, again, if we could take questions about this. I mean, you know, we had a lot of questions from Mansfield, we had a lot of questions from Norton. We're working in Norton. It's been reported in the newspaper that we're talking to Wheaton College. If you've seen that, you know, there we're looking at building an expansion to their plant. They've got the same challenges that we do with ours. They're limited to a certain amount of surface water discharge. They have to find places to leach it. I mentioned that we're working with them for additional to what we have to do for redundancy. But they're looking at our approach as a way to say, gee, you know, instead of spending X millions of dollars to build a plant on site and use a valuable resource, which is their land, what would it look like to tie in with us? And it's a significant customer that would be a customer of Norton's and ultimately be a customer of the regional authority, but it's an opportunity for them to see a cost reduction and get into the business of educating our students as opposed to dealing with all the other. And there seems to always be, from what I've learned along the way, a great reluctance to get into this business if you're not in it already. Norton is also dealing with a couple of failed systems, or failing systems, if you will, with their school system. And they're in dire need of making something happen. So they are certainly on board and have embraced it wholeheartedly. And again, none of this would have happened if, and we're waiting on March 13th, I had a conversation today with Senator Timilty, and we're going to put together a little delegation to go to the Water Commission meeting to, you know, show our support from the region that we need to get an affirmative vote from them to allow us this exemption. And we've made some friends at DEP, we've made friends at the EPA, we've made friends at the Conservation and Recreation, MEPA. I can't go through all the acronyms, but as a rookie legislator, I never realized quite how large government was until I got there and began to unearth the various components in this thing. And again, the administration changed, the attitude changed, and, you know, Phil, and I do remember, I think you said good luck. Bill Early said good luck. Bob Bell said, nah, you'll never, you know, I mean, everybody was like.
Everybody under the bus, isn't it? The water truck bus.
No, but it was.
No, it was a reality.
That was the reality. We all felt, you know, I mean, it was like, well, I can go get my head slammed, but I'm gonna try. And that's what I said at town meeting, we're gonna try. And so we tried, and believe me, when I reported back the incremental steps that we were making, everybody started getting on the bus,
And you
which
look
is
younger
great.
too, Jeff.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's been a full court press. It's been an effort by all of us involved. Couldn't do it alone. Couldn't do it without the DEP. You know, we got some things straightened away with that Witch Pond well. You know, again, building those relationships, and that's what this is about. And they understand it. This is about being able to deliver something to the ratepayer that's economically sound and environmentally proper. So that's where we're at. The 13th, we're all waiting with bated breath. I know Leo will get the first call when we get our vote, but we're all waiting
I'll be there.
anxiously. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're coming in. You're leading the way. So, but it has been a good effort by everyone's part. So, so I don't know. Anybody have any more questions? Then we'll talk to you about your plan, thoughts.
Bob? Paul?
March 13th, you said you're meeting with who? Who's the authority?
The Water Commission.
The Water Commission.
Who is
Water Resource Commission.
Yeah, Water Resource Commission, who's received a packet that was put together by both Leo and Bob Bell. And I'll tell you that both gentlemen have done an extraordinary job of preparing the data that Conservation and Recreation wanted. They haven't called back for anything, and I've called them 8 times and said, do you have what you need? Do you have everything you can do to make a staff recommendation? And they said, yes, we have, and they have affirmed our request to that resource commission. So we're, again, on their basis of.
So this is this the be-all, end-all? I mean, it's their ultimate decision?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where it rests. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you know anybody.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the other thing. What is, are we unique in this? I know you've done an incredible amount of work, Representative, on this. I mean, are we really kind of unique? Are we setting the bar as far
We'll
as
be the
rest of
first.
Commonwealth?
Yeah.
Really? So there's nothing we can point to anywhere else in the state that has
Well,
done this?
well, there's been some others that have come on a smaller basis that have not embraced the, they haven't grown yet to get into the recharge and the Interbasin Transfer Act, but we will be, and we're being held up really, by DEP to say, this is an example, because the old Colony Planning District has embarked on a $600,000 study on just this issue about recharge. So the DEP is working basically alongside of us with, what is it, 17 communities ago? I think it's
Something like that.
17 or 18 communities that are faced with the same challenge, but they haven't got the infrastructure or some of it already in play. So we will be the first, there's no question about that, to have been granted the waiver, and having the infrastructure.
Under the guise of a regional concept.
Right, exactly.
Right. Now, the creation of this kind of regional plan, and is there, whether we enter into a contract, I mean, however it works out, is there any type of sunsetting clause? I mean, are we at risk of another town, say, opting out in the near future, or could we opt out at some point? I don't know that you would after laying out some capital expenses, but I mean, would that be part of it? I know this is just draft, but.
Well, I think, Jonathan, throw it to you. I mean, we've got to identify every single possibility.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, what would happen is we'd have a town meeting vote to join that.
Okay.
And the regional authority is a separate entity that would exist on its own. And that entity would have representatives that would be appointed by the boards from each town. That would be the board of directors for that entity.
That plant.
And that entity would, again, have its own ability to borrow and bond and so forth.
And build back the member communities.
Right, and keep in mind, they really only have 3 customers, and that'll be Foxborough Board of Water and Sewer, the Mansfield, and the Norton. They're not dealing directly with users. They're only gonna send out 3 bills a quarter.
Yeah, I think the rep made a good point. He said if Wheaton College ties in, they're a customer of Norton's, even
That's
though they're a
right.
big customer,
Right.
they'd be in Norton's as well.
Right.
Linda?
Well, obviously, education for the taxpayers in town is pretty important, Phil. I think that, we have to put something together once this gets approved, so that the taxpayers know exactly what they're voting on when they go to town meeting. I mean, you did a great job giving us heads up before town meeting. We have to keep that in the back
No,
of our mind,
we
think.
fully intend to, we had the workshops, which I thought were very effective last time. We had them at the senior center, and one night we had over 100 people show up.
Right.
We did, on the other end of the spectrum, we had a presentation at the Ahern School that was in the paper, and it was on the cable announced.
Yep.
And Lorraine can tell you how many people showed up. I think there were like 3 or 4. So I basically gave the presentation for the cable TV so it could be shown on TV, but I was speaking basically to an empty audience.
More of a
So,
But
and I was more nervous speaking to an empty audience than I was to. But the thing is I agree with you, and we fully
And I
intend to
think that's
work
what
on the
happened.
workshops.
Yeah,
And
that's what happened at town meeting is, people are going in there with an uneducated, whether it be their fault or not their fault.
Oh, I'm not saying, yeah, I'm just
But
saying, we
have to
intend
do-
to build on that, and as, Mark was saying, we're looking at this, we're learning from some of the mistakes or some of the things we could have done differently. We're taking those to heart. But all that said, and all that, is at that last town meeting, and with our representative getting up and saying, hold on, because I got another option, we still got 66% of the vote at that town meeting.
Right.
So I thought we did a good job from the educational standpoint, and I thought that, that plan was a viable plan, and I thought, given the current circumstances, it was a benefit to the town and a benefit to the ratepayers. But based on the new information and the other things that have happened with the state and Jay's work and everyone's work, I think what we have in front of us now, a regional plan, builds on our existing relationship with Mansfield. We've been in the water and sewer business as a customer with Mansfield for almost 25 years. Our contract's expiring in 2 years. They're expanding the plant. There's the economy of scale. As Jay says, you bring on Wheaton College, they're bringing on users. They're bringing on, the more users and the more people you have buying into a regional concept, the costs are spread out, and the towns and the ratepayers benefit from that. And I think the concept of a board of directors that just runs the plant, and then the towns control their own destiny, is kind of the best of both worlds. And I think that each town's going to have their allotment, and each town has to make decisions based on, like you said about the zoning issues or whatever you want to talk about. The towns control that flow. It's not like that regional authority makes decisions that supersede a board of selectmen or a water or sewer in the local town. The local town has that authority. So I agree. We fully intend to do the education. That's kind of why we're here tonight. I know Jay had a meeting with you, and he invited us to come in. That's why we met with the advisory, and we'll probably meet again with the advisory. That's why we've met with the Board of Selectmen in Mansfield, and I think this is a great opportunity to talk to you, and that's why we're meeting with Andy and Randy to get them in, and we fully intend to do the educational. And any input you have or anything that you want to add or give us any suggestions, we're more than happy to listen. Appreciate it.
And what we might also do is, and I've run this by the other two communities, but to bring the 3 boards together, 3 boards of selectmen, and maybe include the folks at the school committee, finance committees, and we'll put everybody in a room and just give our presentation. Again, it might get a little boring after a while, but repeat, and keep it out there in the forefront for folks, so that we have an informed electorate when they come to these town meetings, because we don't need one failing. We need them all to, this is great that, again, I'm expecting that we're going to get full support from this group. We've got it from Mansfield, we've got it from Norton, but the deliverable is when we walk out of town meeting with 2/3 vote in each 3 towns within a matter of probably a week or 10 days when everybody's town meeting is held. So that's going to be the ultimate challenge, and quite frankly, people are vote with their pocketbooks, and I don't blame them. I do too. So we need to be sure that we've got the right numbers, and that's what we're really, working on now with the meetings that have taken place, that we can go and put up a PowerPoint presentation and have, this is the worst case scenario, if you will, and know that that's a real live number, and that people aren't going to be surprised when they get their bill in 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 years, that, hey, wait a minute, those guys told me something completely different.
Yeah,
So-
that's the sensitivity that we have as a board. I don't want to tell you X or the ratepayer X and then it's X plus. I want at least to have a number that we put out there that this is what it's going to cost, and then that's the same bill that you get if it's approved, or less.
Right.
I don't want it to be
More.
more. And that's because I am a ratepayer. I am on the sewer system in Sears Estates, so I paid a betterment. The town told me what it was going to cost, and that's what it cost. And I pay the rate now. So that's my sensitivity as a water and sewer commissioner, but also as a ratepayer and as a resident. And that's why we're trying to, Earth Tech is working on getting those numbers that we can manage, and we can come to a value that is, we feel is going to be approved by town meeting, and the ratepayer can afford to pay it.
But we're not talking about taxpayers here. I mean, as far as the whole taxpayer in this town, you're talking about betterments in the people that are beyond us. The taxpayer, as
I'm talking about the
I'm
user.
on septic, I don't need it. So it's gonna be the betterments that are gonna be, once again, paying for this.
Yeah, but you as a taxpayer are going to benefit by, at least under the scenario of last spring's proposal, there was 10 miles of new road going into town that didn't cost you, but me as a sewer payer was gonna pay for.
Right,
or
no,
betterments.
I understand that.
So there is a
I'm saying-
benefit, and I think the important thing that keeps getting overlooked, and Jay, I appreciate Jay keeps bringing it up, is there's an environmental impact too, to this town. It's water quality, and you could talk a little bit about that. There's a whole aspect of the CWMP was the, clean up the environment, and that this program will do that. I mean, the water coming out of the plant over at Mansfield will be treated at the same quality level that's going up into the stadium toilets now. It'll be reused quality. So instead of having 5,000 septic systems all over town, some working, some not working, you're gonna be, taking a good portion of that flow, and you're gonna be treating it to a level of reuse quality.
And again, if you buy, I'm gonna come right back to you, 1 second. If you buy the argument that we're all sharing from the same basin, that we're all drinking from the same source, then what we do here in Foxborough has an impact on Mansfield and Norton, and vice versa. All three towns are being united. So your answer to your question, under the past scenario, and maybe even under this one, the costs have been borne by the user. We could take a whole nother hour and debate whether or not there should be some tax levy borne by everybody for the preservation of the aquifer.
That's where I was going, Jay.
Right, okay, so you're there before.
Because that's what came up last year also, is why would the town kick in 10 million versus this or that? What are your plans for that? That's my question. Do you think that's something we're gonna approach, or you think that's something at this point you're gonna leave?
You wanna do it?
I think that's something that, I think part of the reason why we initiated the meeting with Randy and Andy was not to talk about, but to put everything on the table. I'm looking at this strictly the same way I looked at it last spring. Betterments. If the Board of Selectmen feel that there should be some contribution from the town, then I think that's under your purveyance, not mine. I mean, I'm looking at this from a betterment aspect, totally paid for by the betterment.
That's why I just wanted to ask the question.
And rates too.
And rates,
Yeah,
correct.
rates,
But
which-
there's nothing in the numbers you see here that make any assumptions about taxation.
This option versus last year's option is saving how much? Because I
4.3 million.
Remember, last
You
year's
know,
option only addressed 14 areas.
Right, you
This
addressed
draft
all
scenario has
13.
13, and
13,
based
so-
on those numbers, and as we refine those numbers, that 13 may be scaled down to 7 to get that cost, that individual cost, to a reasonable number. Because, there's a limit. We can't, we have to stay within the confines, and that's kind of why we're meeting with Randy and Andy, to tell them where we are with the raw numbers based on 13 areas. And if we can get those 13 areas and get the betterment charges to be a reasonable number, then we can go with it. But if we can't, based on their input and based on input from Bob Bell, who's reevaluating, doing a lot-by-lot assessment of each of the 13 areas, I think we have to get that betterment cost down to a number that is reasonable. Because I don't want to go to town meeting with a number that's astronomical, or have a selectman get up there and say he doesn't believe my numbers, or, I wanna be up there at town meeting with a number that I feel that I can stand behind, and I, as a ratepayer and as a commissioner, I can stand behind.
Because you'll
and I
be
feel comfortable.
stoned at the common.
But that's what I think is all a part of this evaluation process.
Which
And
is
that's-
good. That's why I'm bringing it
And
up.
that's why, and that's why we've talked to Randy and Andy, because I think it's important to get their perspective, and they may be looking, and it's always good to get a fresh set of eyes. We stare at this and we get tunnel vision. They come in differently and say, well, how about this, how about doing that? So, we're looking for any input or any.
And one more question.
Sure.
Until we get to the other question, which you promised me, Jay.
Okay.
Did you do your pooling yet?
We are planning on we're having a workshop in 2 weeks, and based on lengthy discussions, and based on discussions with the board, we are gonna do polling, and we're gonna do it more in the concept of an informational polling, because we feel strongly that a yay or nay or an election polling is not gonna be that effective, because it goes back to why we started out this whole discussion with the CWMP. That was the polling. That was a 5-year study that the town spent $680,000, had a representative from each major board in town, had 5 ad hoc, had 4 phases, multiple public hearings, and each phase was approved by the state. That is the poll that says we need sewer in town. The informational poll is going to be talking to people about what the impacts are to them, positive and negative, what's the what's their current condition. So it's going to be an informational poll based on all 13 areas. Because I could come to Jim's in a sewer, let's just say Jim's in a sewer district. I could come to Jim and I could ask him, do you want sewer? His current situation is he just replaced his sewer system, and his kids are about to go to college and moving out. Well, Jim decides to sell his house a year from now. The next person moves in with 5 young kids. He may have a different answer than Jim. We have the scientific process that has said that Jim's area is identified as a sewer needs area. It was input from Board of Health, it was soil samplings, it was a scientific process. That is our poll. The information poll we're going to do is going to notify each area and notify them of what the impacts are, and we haven't really finalized the poll, but it's going to be an informational poll, to answer your question.
And I think, too, some of the things that people probably might be asking at home is, well, if it goes by, do I have to tie in, or is it not, or, those have to also be worked out as well, because we're going to try to create options for people, and we're going to try to investigate as best we can financial options, so that it's not going to, we don't want to put anybody in harm's way. Have to be respectful of that. But
You'll be stoned at the comment, too.
I'll be up there. You won't have me to kick around any longer, But
Thanks.
I think that it'll, the information's going to be coming out fast and furious, and we have to do our part to obviously educate the public and make sure that people know and that your questions are answered. Because again, we're going to be looking to you to help us. So.
You all set?
You had touched on the leaching fields at the playing fields and the Spring Street. And you didn't
Yes.
get to finish the thought. I was just curious to hear your.
Well, if we go the regional approach with Mansfield, we will not have to touch those 2 areas.
Mhm.
If we stay in town, we will have to touch those 2 areas.
So that's a big win for the
Or-
recreation
yeah,
part,
or I-
as well as for the neighbors and people who
People
will
on
be
Spring
affected
Street
by
that they're-
odors and
Yes.
everything else down
Yes.
in Spring Street.
Well, just so that our friends in Norton don't get nervous, okay? That water, the water quality that comes out is second to what you drink, okay? It is that clean. And the ratcheting down of the regulations on recharge are such that it is very, very stringent, the way the whole thing works. So it is very, very good water. And it is what you will be drinking as that water works through to the aquifer. So make no mistake, I don't want people to think that it's something different than that. I think what you would see in our recharge site is going to be cranberry bogs without the cranberries. I mean, that's what I've been told it would look like. And that water would move from one, large, maybe a football field size, to the next. And again, leach into those, into the aquifer. And we're sensitive to how close it is to the wells, because Norton draws water from there as well. So it really, maybe people would say recreation department would love the water to keep those fields green too, as opposed to having to do something else. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The amount of work you've put into this and the Board of Water Commissioners is amazing. It's remember when you were first running and you're talking about this regional approach, and I was one of the ones who smiled at you, and sounds very good.
Yeah.
Sounds very good. And you've actually, through your leadership and with the rest of the legislators, you've actually done it. So you've created a brand new landscape, which is unbelievable as far as the quickness that you've done it in and the coalition building that's been necessary. So much credit goes to you. The question I have then is, what do you think the chances are on March 13th of the rules being changed or of a waiver being granted?
99.9. I mean, all indications, again, the coalitions that we have built, we've got a lot of people that are there cheering us on and cheering that commission on to say, you know what, these guys have done their homework. They've brought you know, what's sometimes even more interesting is to bring three communities together in our parochial New England, number one. But to bring three.
Whatever do you mean by that?
But to bring three consultants together. You know, this thing had been shepherded by a consultant in each community.
Mm-hmm.
But to bring three consultants together and work towards a common goal and get them to buy into this, to say, wow. To get the DEP to work with the EPA and meet by, I mean, because sometimes these entities go in and clash. They do. But again, that coalition and the help from Senator Timilty and his relationships and Representative Kafka and Representative Poirier and D'Amico, I mean, all these people are kind of, you know, moving this thing along. And I might remind you that last year, we got a $75,000 earmark for the purpose of this study. The state made an investment. It was all that we got, but it was something that helped the three communities, and that too is an impetus to get the attention. It's not a lot of money. It's a lot to me. It's a lot to us. It's a big help, but it gave those state agencies to say, these guys are serious. And, you know, we've got our coalition together, and we were able to convince both the House and the Senate that this was a worthy investment. We weren't able to convince the governor. We had to override his veto. But we were able to convince those. So, again, there's been an investment by the state, there's been an investment by this community and the CWMP, looking out for the health and welfare of the community, the health and welfare of the aquifer. There's been an investment by water and sewer commissioners in each of the three towns, and taking the time and recognizing that without sewer, we're not going to be here. You know, we said it's a 100-year plan. Quite frankly, I think we need to look out that far to preserve our water, so that we can sustain ourselves and sustain opportunities for, you know, users to come in that have failing systems. So it's a win-win. Just might mention in Mansfield, we are not going into any new areas. What Mansfield has recognized with their 400,000 gallon need is we need to create more flow for downtown. You've all heard about smart growth around the train station. Those areas are being considered for higher density use, both mixed-use development, commercial, residential. Our Main Street, you've seen
We've heard something about that.
yeah, something. Revitalization of downtown where we've seen, you know, commercial on the first floor and residential above it. We need to expand our capacity for that. We have made inroads in the industrial park, Cabot Park, to attract some really top-name companies in biomanufacturing. Covidian now is going to be up to 1,700 employees. It's gone from a warehouse to, you know, a toilet and a sink for one guy to open the gate to people. And people require the infrastructure necessary for that to continue to grow. So that's where that 400,000 is going, into that park. And I look at it, you know, more globally perhaps, but what's good for Mansfield economically is good for Foxborough, and what's good for Norton is good for Mansfield, and collectively all of us will enjoy Patriots Place, Mansfield Crossing, TPC, Tweeter Center, Gillette. It goes on and on and on. And we are really viewed as a very, very strong economic engine for the entire state. And it's through this sort of effort that we're going to get there.
I agree with Jay. It's almost 100% that they'll pass it, because regionalization is going to be a thing of the future in every aspect, even with the Emergency Planning Response Committee that we attended the other day. It's going to be, it started with schools. It's going to really be the up-and-coming thing, because it cuts costs to the town, and it really helps everybody work together to make it better, you know.
Better
I think
communities.
another good sign is, since we had initial talks with the water resource people, and they told us what they wanted, we put the package together and we sent it in. A letter we got back saying, well, if we need anything further, we'll let you know, and we haven't boo from them. In our past experiences with Witch Pond, it was a question after you send in the thing, they come back with more questions. You send in something, more questions. It just seems like you're on a treadmill going nowhere. This thing seems like it's heading right for home plate.
Chicken wings?
Which part was 20 years of that, I think, right?
Well, I know your board's worked so hard, and you know, from the original CWMP report, that was such a research project, and also such a vision setter. So it's nice to see that there's some people in place who are able to effect some change. So,
yeah. Well, change is in the air.
I'm just amazed that you're there, and I'm so happy that we're in a position that we can support that, so.
I think that's the other reason why you're gonna see this pass, is because I think everyone recognizes how much work did go into this and how much study there was done, and that we did everything the right way. And that's why I think everyone's supporting this.
The same?
Well, the delivery of clean water and the proper disposal and recharge of wastewater, I believe to be a critical function of government. I supported your efforts when you worked as hard as you did last year to bring that last project forward. It was expensive. It was a worthy debate. The way it was defeated was narrow, although that was only the first stage. Appreciate all the work that you've done, from using your position as the representative of the 3 towns involved to get them together to go for the regional approach. I agree with Mark. I think regionalization is the wave of the future. A lot of the questions that were asked tonight were questions that I had. I don't yet have a firm understanding of what kind of timetable we're working on. I understand the meeting on the 13th. If there's no favorable vote, there's no reason to go forward, because we're back to where we were. You obtain a favorable vote on the 13th, which says Foxborough doesn't have to bring its wastewater back.
Right.
What's the next step?
Well, the next step for us would be to finalize that regional, the intermunicipal agreement committee has to finalize that regional concept.
Okay.
We've already presented to Andy placeholders for any appropriation, for any zoning, any approval by town to modify that intermunicipal agreement, for any regional authority that needs to be created, the town needs to vote on. We also had something relating to a regional sewer district, because we would have to delineate in town what the sewer district delineation would be, basically the 13 areas identified in the CWMP. We as a board would do the polling, as we discussed earlier. We would also do the educational, the workshops that Linda brought up, the presentations, working with boards, meeting, to get this out there and discuss it. And basically follow some of the template that we created last time, but learn from some of the mistakes we made last time. But it's 10 weeks from yesterday, by my estimation, is town meeting.
Okay, so I guess that's what I'm getting. The 13th of March comes.
That's our
The
ticket.
next step is to finalize the 3-town agreement.
Let me back you up just a second, if I
Okay.
could. My sense is that everything that Phil said is absolutely correct, other than I don't believe, until we get town meeting approval, okay, that upon town meeting approval by all 3 communities, will we then go and develop the regional compact, if you will?
So the next phase of this process, before we all pat ourselves on the back, is
Right.
to bring something to town meeting. That something is, we're talking about the 27 million, the
That,
42
what you
million,
have
the
in
10
front of
million.
you, what you have in front of you is 13 areas, and that is the worst-case scenario, just for draft numbers, just for discussion. As I told you, Bob Bell from Earth Tech is working on doing a lot-by-lot assessment of all 13 areas, coming up what the cost estimates would be for all 13 areas. Because you could have let's just use an example, you could have area 1, the betterment costs are $10,000. You could have area 11, I'm just using examples here. In area 11, the costs are $45,000 in betterments. And do you look at it from blending those costs across all areas, or do you look at, the $45,000 betterment cost, the reason it's high is because there's only 5 homes, and it's not, based on the polling and based on the assessment of the lot by lot, they may not be a priority right now, but they will be on the list. So we eliminate that 45,000, then those betterment costs come down. That's all part of the evaluation process that we're going to do.
What I'm trying to get at, Phil, you folks have a lot of facts and you have a lot of things going on. I'm just trying to get
What's
my own
next?
understanding of
Yep.
where does the town look for the next step? And it's a town meeting vote. where there are you've asked for placeholders on there's a spring meeting warrant, right? And those placeholders, we're not talking about zoning, I'm interested in funding. Are there
Right.
gonna be, do you anticipate some kind of funding article on the warrant?
If we go forward, yes.
Okay.
Similar to last year's, which would be funded by betterments, unless you guys think it's, and girl, think
Then-
it's more important that maybe there could be some contribution to,
That, I guess, leads me to my next question, is at what point will we have enough information to have a discussion about what critical areas will be part of the first phase? What?
we have a
Finish my
workshop,
question.
yep.
What betterment costs could be expected, and whether the town ought to contribute as a whole to the cost of that? Which is not a discussion we had last year, it was strictly betterments, and maybe we ought to have that discussion.
We are going to have a workshop with the board to go over all 13 areas. Earth Tech is finishing up, I believe it's either this week or next week, their lot-by-lot assessment.
Your board, Phil, the Board of Water Sewer?
Board of
Okay.
Water and Sewer is going to go over and evaluate the lot-by-lot assessment from Earth Tech. And based on their recommendation and based on the numbers they present, we're gonna look at whether we can do all 13 areas with feasible costs, or if we have to get that betterment cost value down to, a workable range. And the workable range that I'm working on is in 1996, I was assessed $7,700. In 1998, Greenview was assessed around $10,000. What is that value today, 12 years later or 10 years later? I don't know. We have, I'm trying to be consistent.
Sure.
The thing you have to look at is that, the Board of Water and Sewer in the town does have a history of implementing sewer programs. They did it for Sears Estates, which was 55 homes. They did it for Greenview, which is 165 homes. And I think that the board did it in a measured approach, and they did it from the concept of what are the impacts to the ratepayers and what are the impacts to the town. And that's the sensitivity that we're gonna continue to carry here, and, in the big picture here is to protect the environment, as you said, Jim, the water quality and the quality of the water going in the ground, so, but the cost is also a factor here. So, I could, after that workshop, maybe we come back and we have some better numbers and we have a better scope of the program, we can talk about that.
When, one of the things I want to avoid is educating the community at the last minute, or even educating this board at the last minute, so that we don't say, oh my God, how can we tag someone with a $30,000 bill and require that they do it? So if the next step is town meeting, and if you anticipate some funding article, when could we expect to see, as a board or as a town, some information about what that warrant article might look like?
I would probably say, in that concept, probably within 2 weeks.
That's very aggressive, that's,
Well, we have to be.
Okay.
It's something where we can, we're having that workshop. I think we're gonna have the finalized numbers, hopefully from Earth Tech. So I think that, it may be an aggressive estimate, but I think I'd rather be aggressive than not. Because I think, my count, I think yesterday was 10 weeks to.
And I only want to touch on a couple of more things, because
sure.
I'm determined not to break the advisory committee's 2.5-hour record in this discussion for the first time in. Mark raised the issue of polling, and I think what you're talking about is some informational polling.
In that workshop, we're gonna finalize that.
And that, you expect that informational polling to be done, again, relatively quickly?
Yes.
Um,
And it would be mailed to all 13 areas.
Okay, and not that I advocate or intend that the town become involved in an override, I haven't talked to the finance director or anything, but I am sensitive to the position that was put forward last spring, that maybe the town ought to look at that, if in fact there's a town-wide commercial benefit to be gained by opening up the flow. And I've always been concerned about the downtown, which doesn't appear to be reviving at all. If anything, it appears to be deteriorating. And if this program is designed to open up that flow and enhance our development downtown, that may be a component that we want to look at.
That's a component, and also, as Phil mentioned, the improvement to the roads is something that we all enjoy. So, you know, there are a lot of aspects of that. I've had the discussion with a number of people just to get a sense of the community-wide benefit by being good stewards of the community assets, which is our water. So, you know, again, we've got to get the final numbers. I want to just make one thing clear, that the areas of critical need that have been defined, that's as far as the sewer system is going to go. For those folks that have heard in the past that, gee, the community's putting sewer in, we're going to have explosive growth, houses built places where they wouldn't perk before or what have you, that is not the case here.
You stop reading my mind, Jay, that was my next question.
I'm sorry. You and I are just on the same wavelength tonight, that's all.
Stop it.
Okay.
It's got a hat for it.
But I think that needs to be clear, because there are those skeptics that will come to town meeting and say, you know, look what happened to Mansfield, when Mansfield extended sewer into East Mansfield. We got 800 houses out of it. You know, our community exploded as a result of it. So we need to be clear that this is about preserving the integrity of what we have and what we need to sustain ourselves for the future. And one last point, Jim, we are doing the same exercise in each of the three communities, okay? A little bit less in Mansfield, again, because we know where we're going. We know we needed the extra flow for future hookups that we don't even know exist yet, but, you know, through planning and zoning and issues surrounded around smart growth, we know where it's got to be. In Norton, they are faced with the same challenges that you folks have. There's some infrastructure that exists. There are some areas around Norton Reservoir and others where Norton is at the end of the, you know, end of the line, a much lower, higher water table. They've got a tremendous number of failures. As I mentioned, their schools are at issue. So they're trying to line up and design. They've got an additional problem. They need to design a plan so that we do it once. We've got Route 123 that's supposed to be repaved perhaps as early as this summer. And we're trying to work with Mass Highway and understanding that there's got to be some infrastructure improvements, and we don't want to be stuck with a 5-year moratorium of not being able to go into that road if we need to. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing. It's amazing.
I want to compliment you, Jay, first of all, for taking the leadership position on this very important issue for Foxborough. Phil, you talked earlier on, I had a question and you answered it. We also have to recognize, one of the reasons I like the way you are presenting this is this has been we've done this, and we've been helped here, and we've got help over there. It's no one standing up taking credit for something that hasn't happened. But your willingness to credit the change in the administration, the change in heart of some of the departments of the state of Massachusetts was crucial to our ability to even get in the door and lobby for our position, let alone find a 99.9% chance of changing what 12 months ago was a closed door.
Right.
And I compliment that.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I just want to bring up my Patriots Place thing, that's
Okay.
it. Working with the zoning board review committee, I saw this coming to 2 septic systems, is what they call it. The option that we've been talking about this for months now, Jay.
Yep.
And the work you guys have been doing. I feel that the project and the system that they want to build up the stadium is going to be just as vital to the new part of Foxborough up on Route 1, with the convention center being proposed and everything else. How does the board feel with that view?
Do you want to, Jonathan, with your, Phil, who wants it?
You don't want to touch that?
Who wants it, yeah. No, I look at we are sensitive, the CWMP identified 125 or 125,000 gallons of wastewater need up on Route 1 area. And specifically, it said the EDA, which you could argue that the commercial development up there, any buildable land up there is probably owned mostly by the Patriots now. They've been purchasing a lot of land up there. So our sensitivity is that, that's why we proposed and put forth and ended up funding the pressure district, the water pressure district up there, because the planning board and the Board of Selectmen had approached us back in 1999 about inadequate water pressure and not having a good infrastructure up there for commercial development. So that's why part of the Patriots Stadium project up there is we put in a water pressure district. And that's why you see that 1 million gallon tank up there was part of that whole infrastructure. So that addressed the water pressure issue for commercial development. As far as the Route 1, and we're also sensitive to one of the CWMP areas is the North Street area. So my sensitivity is that we don't walk away from, because we go to Mansfield, we don't walk away from North Street area or the Route 1 area, because like you said, that is a potential commercial development. With that in mind, one of the third options we're looking at, and it's not anything that's been finalized, it's just conceptual, is maybe blending, coming up with a blend of the still going to Mansfield, but maybe have some relationship still on Route 1 with the Patriots plant to address the North Street area, residential area, and commercial development on Route 1. That's something that's just in the preliminary stages, but it's addressing the sensitivity that I have and the board has to the North Street area and to commercial development on Route 1. So, it's something that we're talking about. The intermunicipal agreement committee has approached the other towns about the concept of bringing the Patriots plant into the regional authority. Concept-wise, just discussions. We've had some very informal discussions with the Patriots about the concept, because we rather them hear it from us than from someone else. So we're looking at that as a kind of look at it from you have option 1 and 2 in front of you. Look at it as kind of a minor blending of the two. Most of our flow will go to the regional plant, but maybe bring the Patriots entity into the regional concept. That regional board of directors would run the Mansfield plant and the Patriots plant, and we would have some capacity in that plant to address the North Street area and Route 1 commercial development.
And again,
it's all conceptual.
And enjoy the economies of scale through not having to duplicate staff, to operate.
And it meets some goals of the town, right? Commercial development, sewer disposal. They have over 300,000 gallons of subsurface leaching capacity up there underneath their parking lots that we have an option on. But that, so it would be something that's up there, and under that concept, in the concept, they still get out of the wastewater business, which is really the goal of the Patriots. They don't want to, like Jay says, if you're not in the business, you don't want to be in the business, and if you're in it, you probably want to get out of it.
Right.
So, because he has other entities, and so I think to address those concerns, because I'm sensitive to the North Street area, which was identified in the CWMP, I don't want to come up with a solution that eliminates that area.
Also in the Ponson Reservoir area,
Right.
up in that old Chestnut, some of Chestnut Street.
But in also the commercial aspect. So I think to address your commercial, the board has been consistent and has always historically looked at sensitivity to building the infrastructure on Route 1. That's why